This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, July 12th, 2016, episode 78. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Infection, episode number 78, recorded live on Tuesday, July 12th, a mobile audio-only edition, Brian. This is This is brand new stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. InfectionPodcast.com is the website. And we are here with I guess we could call this the bandwidth limited epised of Infection.
We had everything working beautifully, but the issue is at your hotel, everyone comes back to the hotel 6 o'clock in the afternoon and starts streaming Netflix.
We're on a strip of we're in a condo complex, and there's like probably 50 other condo complexes on this strip. So people come back, they're loading up YouTube, they're loading up Netflix, and around 6 o'clock, the internet just, it was like 100 kilobits, which is, not even enough to load, like pinging Google, you're losing packets at 100 kilobits. It's an unusable internet connection. So,
man.
We're at 1 o'clock in the afternoon here on the East Coast.
Earliest show ever, I think. Well, other than maybe some special things we did. But yeah, this is I think that's the earliest we've ever done the show. Definitely the earliest. And we didn't give anybody warning. So
no, we didn't.
People will start streaming in as they realize that we're going.
Yeah, well, the issue is it was fine. It was fine on the weekend, but they said it's really bad during the week. And today's so Monday, last night was the first day the first weekday that we were here, and I guess that's when it's the worst. So we're recording live. It's going to be a shorter show, but we do have a lot of news, especially a lot of H1Z1 news. Brian, I don't know if you saw this combat patch that they pushed out. It was last Wednesday, a day after last week's show. There was a lot of people giving it some flack, and just a few things that they changed. So the first thing is they're titling this internally the combat patch, and they're really focusing on a lot of combat. They're focusing on guns. And the first thing is this shotgun again, which we've seen, I don't know how many times now, 10 times, 15 times, constantly. Yep. And I can hope and pray that this time it's actually fixed. So they're trying to, again, improve the consistency of the shotgun. They're working on, of course, like a shotgun, it's supposed to be really powerful up close, and as you step farther and farther away, the damage goes way down. They say that they've got it working how they like it. They've said that probably 5 times in the past as well. But this was really, only combat stuff. So I can hope that this should be very close to the final version of the shotgun, because since day one, I don't know if you disagree with me, but since day one, the shotgun has been atrocious.
Well, it's constantly up and down. The problem is they'll adjust it one way, either too much or too little. So you get people going, okay, I'm going to use the shotgun all the time now, and then the shotgun is sitting there, and you're really close up, and you're shooting people directly in the face, and they still don't die. It's just been something that there's a lot of YouTube videos. If you go check out YouTube, you will hear that these people just are so frustrated because they'll have videos of just running by and somebody else has a handgun and they're just pegging them straight on with a shotgun, and the person won't die. They shoot them 3 times with a handgun, and the person with the shotgun dies. So this has been one of those just coming back again and again. So I'm hoping that they're really, with this combat patch, starting to figure out how they're supposed to adjust their guns on a consistent basis and how to make them all balanced. Because that's the thing, is you don't want one gun. You want it real to what the world would be. Like a little handgun that's... Remember when they first started, we had these handguns that would blow up cars in like less than 10 shots?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean things like that. You gotta balance it out to where these guns are doing real world damage. I could sit there and probably shoot a truck all day long, and it's probably not going to ever blow up. It may start leaking fuel and may be able to get to catch on fire, which eventually will make it do it. But, just make it somewhat realistic. Like a shotgun's not going to two-shot a vehicle, so make sure it doesn't two-shot a vehicle. If someone comes and shoots me with a shotgun in the stomach, I'm probably going down.
This is a hard balance, and we've talked about this in the past.
You want it to be fun.
Too much. But exactly, this is not people I think often get wrapped up in, oh well, realistically. Okay, so first of all, this is not realistically. You're playing a video game, and if you, I mean, realistically, one shot with a pistol is going to. I mean, if you get shot with a pistol once, Brian, if I came and shot you with a pistol anywhere in your body, you are not going to be shooting me back. I can almost guarantee you. You are falling to the ground if I shoot you once with a pistol. In most cases,
Usually, yeah.
So
some people won't realize they're shot, and they'll go in for a little bit, but then some people, like one shot, man, they're down. So it's
exactly. I mean, I could easily
consistent.
kill you with one shot of a pistol, easily.
Yeah.
So there's a very fine line between realism and this is a video game, and every shot should not be a one-hit kill. Which in real life, I mean, with an AR, if you get shot probably 2 times, you're probably dead. Depending on where they hit you, 2 shots to the chest is going to kill you, if not 1. So this is a really fine line of stuff that they're working on.
And they're not going for an ultra realism on this. They're kind of aiming towards somewhat of a first person shooter, Battlefield,
arcadey.
Call of Duty-ish, arcadey type of gunplay, which is fine. It makes it fun, but they really need to have their guns correct if they're going to go for that style. It needs to be, because those games put a lot of focus on the guns and making sure they're consistent and everything is just balanced for what you're getting. Like one gun will not be way more overpowering another gun, so that it's not like everybody is just going for one gun in the game. Usually they're spreading it out, and there's benefits to each gun. So they got to figure out how to kind of balance it out to where there is a benefit. Make sure that the range on the shotgun is not too far, so that you can have an ultra power up close. Make it so when people get close, they switch to the shotgun. That makes that consistent play. But the problem is, we've seen in the past where you can shoot somebody from so far away with the shotgun, and it does a huge amount of damage when it shouldn't. It should injure them somewhat.
Yeah,
but it's not going to kill them from that far away versus an AR. So, but the AR needs to be to where up close, it's harder to aim and kill someone. You need to have that kind of potato aim with a shotgun. But, if you hit, it pays off, because it is, up close, it should do that much more damage. So I think that's what they're really focused. They did focus on also fists, combat knives, machetes, wood axes. They are giving those more damage, so that it's almost double. I think most of them, they doubled or a little more than doubled.
So the other thing is the cone of fire, which we've talked about, and they've worked on. We've heard them talk about it. I'm pretty sure it was implemented, and now I guess they're just talking about it now officially. But the guns were way too accurate when you were running and jumping. You could sit behind a wall and jump like 3 or 4 times, line up your 308, and then jump and hit the shot every time. That's not how that's going to work anymore. So the cone of fire has been adjusted. When you're jumping, running, sprinting, whatever you want to call it, you will be less accurate, which is realistically what would happen. You're not going to jump and hit the same spot every single time on a target. So that they've talked about that, and now because that's officially in here. And then now let's get into the next thing you just mentioned, Brian, is that fists, combat knives, machetes, and wooden axes have also been upgraded. So the fists previously did 4.5 points of damage. That has been upped to 9, so that's double there. Combat knives were previously 10 damage per hit. Now they're up to 21, so a little over double on that. Machetes were previously 12. They're now 25, so a little over double on that. And then the wooden axe was previously 16.5 points of damage, now up to 34. So the fists are a real deal now. 21 damage per hit of the fist.
So 9 for the fist. 9 for the fist, 21
I'm sorry,
for the
9 for
combat
the fist,
knife.
right.
Yeah, but it's still...
So
that's
a lot.
Should take someone down much faster.
Yeah.
I think are they not treating it headshots or more? It looks like they're just consistently that damage.
Yeah, I think it is consistently that damage. And the issue melee has really never been good. It was either super powerful or absolutely terrible. So this looks combat knife doing 21 hits of damage. That is where it should be. I mean, that's 5 hits of a combat knife, which is, I think if you can get 5, if you can walk up to somebody and hit them 5 times with the combat knife, they probably should die. Previously, it would take 10. Now it's going to take 5, and that's much more realistic and makes much more sense.
If I come
10 hits is too much.
5 shots of a combat knife into you, you are going down. I mean,
Exactly, and you
that's the way
should.
it is.
Um,
Yeah,
the
and
mach- now, the
especially
one
with a
thing
wood axe. If I'm chopping at you with a wood axe, I would think you should die before 3 or 4 swings.
Exactly. And now you will die in 3 or 4 swings, so from 16.5 to 34. 34 is a big chunk. That's a lot of damage that's doing. So now, previously, when nobody would ever bother picking up any of those melee weapons because they were almost useless, they
Yeah,
have a use now. You could totally defend if you are going against somebody like me who is not a good shot and I only have a few bullets and you're running at me with a wood axe, that is a much more fair fight than it used to be, because now you're actually doing 35% 35 hits of damage every time you swing that axe and get a hit.
yeah.
So combat, at least I see PvP combat being a thing that's now going to be huge, because you can actually kill people now with guns if you can evade them and hit them properly.
Yeah, and now one thing here that they've changed, they're changing the AK-47. So the AK is now going to be full auto fire. So you no longer have to single tap like the AR or the AR. So the AK will be faster than the AR in full auto fire. So they're saying that's going to be more difficult to control. And so
Yeah, so
what they're saying is
there'll
that
be some type of recoil.
yeah, and so the AK, but it will be closer to the speed of the AR-15 when tapping. So, I mean, it's down to milliseconds, but when you're doing this, that's pretty fast. So the delay between the shots has been reduced from 160 to 145 milliseconds. So it should be able to fire faster when you're doing tapping single shots.
Yeah,
So that'll
exactly.
that, now that's the thing, and that's what they should do. That's what I was saying. There should be a benefit to one. One you can do the full auto fire and but it shouldn't be something that is easily controlled. It needs to have it to where there's not an obvious reason to go with the AKA versus the AR. It should be, well, I'm kind of giving up a little bit of something to have the better, this better part of the other.
Exactly. So that's good with the AK there. Now the next thing is the R380, which is arguably the worst gun in the game. That little pistol, and the
Yeah.
damage has been was previously 15, so that's been increased to 17.
Barely better than
Um,
than punching.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's a little pistol. Now the other thing they tweaked the M9 too, and they actually lowered the damage on the M9 by 1 point from 19 to 18, which is, I feel like that's going to be significant. And the reason, what they're saying here, is that it now gives you time to apply healing after taking 5 shots. So if you took 5 shots at 19 hit points, you would not have enough time to heal before bleeding to death. With it being 18, you could take 5 shots, get away, and if you bandage or use a med kit or something, you'll actually be able to heal up before bleeding out. So that's going to make the M9 interesting. Because before, if somebody landed 5 shots on you, you were dead. There was no way you were healing. In time, they're just mathematically you weren't going to heal in time. So now you're able to do that. Some other adjustments to the M47 gas grenade. The damage is increased from 1 tick to 3 ticks, and the duration was reduced drastically from 60 seconds to 20 seconds, which, I'm sorry, a gas grenade does not linger for a minute. I mean, realistically it might, but in a video game, that's like being stunned or flashbang for 60 seconds.
I think they really still need to work on the throwables, because I've had a lot of issues lately with the Molotovs being I think they're way overpowered. The spread of the Molotov is way too big for the amount of damage it does, because all they have to do is just cover your building with about 3 Molotovs and you're going to die. Because it goes through the ceilings. Like, it doesn't, they can throw it just outside the doorway and the fire will spread into the house instantly, and give you damage. And it's a ticking damage, from fire as you run away. I think they really need to balance the throwables, and maybe this is the first sign of that. Make it to where it's short-lived, but does more damage. Because if you look, overall, it does the same amount of damage, because it's the same amount of damage in a shorter amount of time. So it's, that's the thing, is they could just throw that, and then if anyone happens to run through that area, they're going to take damage. This is counting on you actually aiming it at the right place. And you will do the same amount of damage as long as they're there, rather than just kind of throwing something and hoping someone runs across it.
Exactly. So that's good news there. In like you said, the throwables are kind of wacky at this point anyway. Now this next
Yeah.
one is really really big. So this says depending on weapons, it used to take anywhere between half a second and a second to change weapons from one to another. This time has now been reduced to 15/100ths of a second. So
Yeah.
that is a drop from 100 from 100 1 second to 15/100ths of a second is a huge time. That's almost no delay at all.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal because a second is a big time, especially if you're coming up on somebody and you need to switch from commonly you switch from a 308 to a shotgun if it's going to be close combat. That's going to allow you to get your first shot off much quicker, and hopefully that encourages better close range gunfight because it just seems like it would now that you're able to switch so much faster.
Yeah. Well, and this thing because they're going for this sort of a tournament style gameplay, and this is what's really important. When you are having to really quickly switch from the long range weapon to someone's running up to you, maybe you throw a quick grenade, then you switch quickly to the shotgun as they're coming up to you, maybe as you're hiding behind a tree. Like these quick movements are what the competitive players are really wanting. Because as you get to that level, like that 1 second to switch from a weapon could mean you dying. And all you're doing is waiting for the gun to switch correctly. I know in real life, and this is one of those things kind of getting away from real life, it would take you a second to switch a weapon. But in a game when you need to focus on the gunplay and having it be fun and based on skill, I think this is a good move. Maybe not in survival, but I think in King of the Kill this is a good move.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's much needed. Damage logs, we've talked about that. They're adding those to the kill screen now, the death screen now. It'll say display how much damage the attack that killed you did, so your final hit, and whether it was a headshot or not. And that's all they say right now. They said moving forward they plan to add some more stuff, but it appears right now it's just going to say what killed you and how much damage it did. It doesn't indicate it's going to say the player's name, the weapon they used, or anything else like that. They say they plan on reworking that, so that's good stuff there. Now the body armor also has some changes. So the regular body armor will protect the entire body, the your chest, your arms, and your legs. It will now be protected by the body armor, and then the helmets will protect your head. So that's the edits made to the body armor there. Now hit reaction is interesting.
Now wasn't that something they recently changed though? Remember the hit having it to because they were making so some of these things were like an overall body protection. I thought they recently had changed to that.
I don't.
So body armor. Okay, maybe it was the body armor to the entire body. Okay, I think that. Yeah, I think so. That's what this is. So previously, the body armor only protected the chest. So they're confirming that.
So you can aim at somebody's legs.
Yeah. So now you can aim at somebody's legs, and the body armor will actually protect the legs and the arms. And now the helmet, but that does not protect your head. So the helmet only protects the head. So they had brought this up before, but this is them actually implementing it.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff in here, like the hit reaction, we've already talked about. They've talked about this stuff in the past. So other than hit reaction, camera and reticle improvements. Now this is the thing. This is the biggest issue here is the camera and reticle adjustments. So they say that they made a couple of adjustments. And the first one is they've added a new element to the reticle that increases in size to display the cone of fire information, which is what we've seen on the test servers in the past, which is you just see, if you have the shotgun out, you see a ring, and the ring will get bigger or smaller depending on your cone of fire. They worked on color saturation to make sure it's clear so that you can actually see what you're shooting at. So now they say in most cases, projectiles now originate from the camera rather than from the weapon model, which is how they previously worked. Before, they would come out of the muzzle of the gun, which was an issue because that's not centered to you, your body, or the camera. That's centered to the muzzle of the gun, which is a big issue. That's why you would have to aim. You were aiming where people weren't because you knew that the muzzle was not where the center of the camera was. So this should make it much easier for, I'm going to say noobs, and I'm going to include myself in that category, that haven't mastered where to aim on the old system, because now what you see, the gun is coming from the perspective of your camera, or the bullet is coming from the perspective of your camera, not from the muzzle of the gun. So that's how it. I mean, your shots should be much more accurate now. In theory.
Yeah. Well, so this is the way they word this though is kind of strange to me that the projectile originates from the camera rather than the head model. So what about when you're in third person? Like, so it's not actually coming from the muzzle of the gun. The bullet is not leaving from that point. I mean, that's just kind of odd to me that it would do that.
It'll leave from that point, but it's not actually. So the bullet literally used to travel out of the front of the model. It will no longer do that. It will be centered to the camera, but still come out of the front of the gun. You're not going to see it, but it's going to be centered instead of like when you're holding the AR, it's to your left. I believe it's sitting off to your left. So all of your shots were not, if you were aiming straight, your shots were going to the left because the gun was to the left and the bullet was coming out of the muzzle of the gun that was facing the left.
So they weren't actually lining it up to the actual center, like of where you're
exactly. The guns were not in the middle. The gun, because you don't hold a gun. You don't hold a gun in the middle of your body. You hold it on one. You push it against one of your shoulders when you're shooting, depending if you're right or left-handed. So it was coming out of the model, not the player. So your shots were not. They weren't originating from where you were seeing them. Based on your point of view. So that's what's been changed, and that's the biggest thing they took a lot of heat over on. So this is just some general gameplay stuff that they included as well. There's going to be some new crafting recipes for King of the Kill coming up.
And actually, I've seen some of this in there. Yep.
Yeah, the makeshift armor, which I've seen on the test servers. The components of that are 1 duct tape, 2 armor scraps, and 4 composite fabric. Motorcycle helmets can now be shredded to provide armor scrap. So if you shred 2 motorcycle helmets, you'll get 2 armor scrap. And military backpacks can be shredded to provide composite fabric. So you'll be able to shred the motorcycle helmets and the backpacks to help create the components that you need to make the makeshift armor, which is great because there's not always a lot of armor sitting around in King of the Kill. Pro coagulant,
and they do protect against what one. Like if you can make a body armor, doesn't that pretty much protect against 1 shot? Was that what I remember them saying?
We've heard so much between body armor and helmets and tactical helmets. I don't know. I think so, but I'm not 100% positive because we've just heard about so much of these different, makeshift.
So I'm trying to remember or if it was just the helmet, because there's one that was a guaranteed stopped 1 shot, and that was the helmet.
That was the helmet with the 308. It would stop 1 shot and break. I'm not sure about the body armor. But that was in the test server, and we should be able to figure that out. The pro coagulant, that's like it quickly stops bleeding, and so it will stop bleeding with that. So it won't give you any healing effects. It will just stop the bleeding. And the components of this is 10 field bandages and 1 tactical first aid kit. So that'll stop the bleeding instantly, and then you have to hit first aid kits to actually heal up. But that'll stop the bleeding where you are. Yeah. Now, the 5-time explosive tipped arrows. So the components of this are 5 M67 frag grenades, 5 wooden arrows, 1 duct tape, and 5 12-gauge shotgun bolts. And that'll make 5 explosive tipped arrows.
And I've been seeing the duct tape around pretty consistently. So these should be, as long as you're collecting as you run along, you should be able to come across these pretty easily.
And that's actually what they say down here is duct tape now spawns on the map. And then the explosive tipped and flaming arrows will no longer spawn. So you have to craft the explosive tip arrows. You won't find them in bundles like you do the regular wooden arrows. So you'll have to do that now. Now, there was also some footwear changes that they worked on. So the main shoes that you'll start off with now are the stealthy shoes. And this will replace the boots that you start with. It's similar in volume to bare feet. You get a 2%.
Yeah, because so many people take off their shoes when they're in the starting area.
Exactly. So now there's actually there's actually some benefits from it. So there's 2% faster than bare feet, and it reduces falling damage by 5%. There's heavy shoes now, which are like boots. They're loud, which isn't really a sound issue. Sound whoring is not really an issue in H1Z1, so it doesn't seem relevant. 7% faster than bare feet and reduces falling damage by 40%. And then there's speedy shoes, which are like the Converse. They're louder than the stealthy shoes, which is what you spawn with, but they're quieter than the boots. You're 16% faster than bare feet, and it reduces falling damage by 15%. So it seems like the heavy shoes or the speedy shoes are what you would want to go with. I don't think sound's really an issue. And if you're going to be
Well,
jumping
unless
and
you're
falling,
creeping around a house, that'd be the only time that I think people would really care. But the second they, like, let's say you're running through the mountains and the forest, you'd want to put on the heavy boots because you may kind of fall down some inclines and things
yeah,
like that. If you're traveling across a flat space, speedy shoes would be the best. So,
yeah.
I mean, they each
I
have
just
their
haven't.
balance.
Go ahead.
They each have their balance depending on where you're going to be. If you're going to be going around subdivisions, you may want to put on the stealthy shoes so someone doesn't hear you coming around a corner as easily.
Yeah. So that's pretty. There's some bug fixes as well for that patch, but we're a little strapped for time, so we're not going to cover all of that stuff. So, other than that, there was a bunch. They did a bunch of like fixes and kind of explaining themselves after that first update. So there was a post on Reddit that was the combat update feedback, and pretty much what they're saying is the reasons that we changed the camera is to make gunplay feel more consistent and be more predictable, which is the biggest image. The gunplay was never consistent in the game. It never has been since day one, and that was the main goal of this patch, was to make it so that when you shoot a shotgun or any other gun from this range, it will produce the same amount of damage almost every time. That's consistency, and that's predictable, and that's what it needs to be. So that was one of the reasons, and then the second one was that what they're trying to do is it's the camera view. The way that they're trying to set up is hip firing is now that, and then the advantage is the field of view, and then the disadvantage is inaccuracy. So like we're talking about, if you're zoomed in, you have higher accuracy but lower field of view, and if you're using the third person and you're zoomed out, you are disadvantaged because you cannot see as far, but you're a little more accurate. So that's what they're working out with that. I don't know why people were so. I saw a lot of people on Twitter just kind of hating on them for this combat update, and it just really didn't make any sense to me. I think it's because those people were familiar with how the old system works, and they're upset that it's changing.
Well, people get used to something.
This is better for the game.
People get used to one way of doing it, or taking advantage of the inconsistency of how it worked. People kind of learn that, and then when they turn to fix things, and we ran into this with other things like playing this game so much early on. We learned how to play the game in the buggy way. Then they go and fix something, and we had to relearn how to do it in the way it should have been the first time. So, we could complain about it, but this is how it should be. Just we're still in alpha. Deal with it. We've heard that plenty of times, but what I'm saying, like, exactly. This is how it should be. So just they're adjusting it to the correct way. We just have to relearn, and that's fine with me.
Exactly. So there was also a King of the Kill hotfix on the 8th. And what this did is, again, Chris Wynn went through and explained the adjustments, the aiming down sight adjustments that they made, again, going back to consistency and predictability. And then how he talked about how the close quarter combat was just too difficult with the new camera angle that they'd introduced. So what they've done is they've moved back the camera angle slightly to give you a better view of what is right in front of you. So that should help that the CQC gameplay, which is important part of the gameplay. So that's pretty much what the hotfix entailed, and of course some other bugs as well. Stuff, issues when you were leaving the vehicle, the camera would shift randomly, and just a bunch of other random FPS drops and stuff like that. So that was the King of the Kill hotfix that came out on the 8th, and then we had a Just Survive update on the 11th, and let's see, where did that go?
So this is it's a smaller patch, and it's already gone. It should have gone live, from what I can tell. So it said live pretty soon, so I'll have to check. I did see a small update, but I'll have to see if this is the one that they included in that. But it's fixing a portion of the desync issues, people going invisible, things like that. They said it worked. It's being worked out at a much deeper level internally, so they're trying to figure that out. Also, the test server is going to get an update this afternoon, which would have been last night. We're hoping to address the arrows and IDEs. Wouldn't that be IEDs?
It should be IEDs.
IDEs are hard drives, type of hard drive. So I don't figure that he must have a tech background. At bare minimum with this, and as we're just not waiting for everything to be fixed before publishing. So they're just kind of doing this smaller one to be able to get get some of these fixed, these little small things fixed incrementally, he says, over a couple of publishes. So storage containers, exploits, and other small issues are being looked at right now. And so this is actually Steve, so he's one of their engineers. So they're working on these small things. So I'm thinking over the next week, and they're probably doing a lot of little fixes and getting used to this process because of how they're doing the new map. They're kind of fixing things throughout the week, putting it on there, and then it goes live. So I'm sure they're working on both of these at the same time, because everything they do seems like they almost have to kind of do a few things twice right now, because they have 2 releases of this game. Well, 3 or 4 releases of this game now, really.
Exactly.
Their new map release, and then they've got these ones that are on the old maps.
Yeah, so this was actually pushed live on the 12th, and I like the idea of them fixing a bunch of little things at a time and then pushing the update live. So they fixed an issue where the IDs were not damaging bases and a few other exploits and issues that people were having. And all those links, of course, will be on the websites, infectionpodcast.com. But I like the idea of just doing not having to wait to do a huge update every single time. Like
they should be fixing these small things consistently. As long as they're not changing the map, the updates will be small. Like anytime you do a map update, that's 2.9 gigabytes about. With these things, this could be a 10, 20, 30 megabyte patch, just because it's small and fixing little bits of code here and there. That's fine with me. I don't mind that. I'd rather see that than having to put up with a bug for a week.
Exactly. So besides that game update on the 12th, we did see some new pictures of the Dirty Deeds, which is going to be the new kind of waste center inside of Z2. And this, you have to go to the websites, infectionpodcast.com, for these, especially if you're listening on a phone. And this is good. This is there's a lot of areas. I see a lot of pipes and storage crates and stuff to hide and duck behind. I could see a lot of combat happening in here. It almost looks like a paintball or airsoft arena, the way that everything is kind of scattered about.
Yeah, and one thing I did notice that's a little bit different. If you go to the one that I think it's the third picture, and it has a couple semis, some buildings to the left, kind of a lane that's going forward. You see left in the building, are those spawn points? You see on the floor, there's red boxes that look like ammo boxes on the table, and I'm wondering if those are the spawn points. And if you look back in that back building there's also something similar. I wonder if those are kind of the random spawn points of where those things can show, because I can't imagine what else would be there.
Yeah, that makes sense, that they're just the spawn points that the engine, pre-rendered before it actually.
Yeah, it's saying here's where they will be placed, and then it's not actually placing them there. It puts it as these are the possible places they can be. So I just haven't seen that before. So that must be, they usually don't show those that I've ever seen inside of the engine, these screenshots. But you can kind of see them other places. You kind of see those kind of hidden in the background. Just little places that I assume ammo go. So exactly. I'm going to keep my eye open for that now.
Definitely
on these internal shots.
So that's H1Z1, and we actually only had 3 ARC updates, Brian. So if you want to go into those, and they were I think they were all pretty short. There wasn't anything major.
So the 244.3, this was July 7th. They fixed an issue where players were teleporting above the landscape in Cave 1. So then they drop down and possibly die. So they fixed that, and that was done server side. Windows and Linux dedicated servers now support automatic mod downloading, installing, and updating. So you can do a -add manage auto manage mods onto your command line before the server launches. And it says, note for maps, this will not work unless you're specifying the workshop ID to load a mod map. So if you're loading a map, a specific map that's actually a mod, but maybe a total replacement, it doesn't work the same. So that's not done yet. But this is something that's done in the command line. So if you run a server, you'll know what this is. You just need to make sure that you have the mods listed in there in the specific way, and there's notes in here how to do that. So that's a new feature, and that's pretty nice, because the issue is mods will get out of date. Steam updates those mods automatically, so you'll have a newer version on your computer than your server will. And if that happens, there's nothing you can do but you have to wait for the server to update its mod or figure out a way to downgrade your mod. So this will allow a lot of these servers to easily keep their mods up to date, so people won't get locked out of the servers. And then there's 244.4, and this was July 7th as well. They fixed an issue with rockets. So the thing is, it required deleting all existing rocket ammo items once. So if you had rockets, in containers or in your inventory, those will be gone. They said they're sorry, but it was necessary. And Rocket Reporter was a guy who must have created an account for that. Rocket Reporter is the one who reported this. It did require a server update. So they are requesting that you update this as soon as possible. So this must have been where probably the rockets were either way too powerful or something like that, to where people were using them to kill things or get into bases. And then 244.5, which is July 10th, so that was 2 days ago. They are doing experimental fast save / load code is being implemented to the server. So this is approximately 4 times faster and 75% smaller. So they really recommend backing up and then your save games before you do this. If you intend to try it out, it's still in testing. So that they're thinking that, it is possible that this will corrupt your saves if you do this. But if you put a -new save format in the command line when you launch, it will start using this new save format. And then also they fixed a case where armor could be circumvented using gun weapons. So that was fixed, and it also requires a server update. So that brings us current three updates this week. Other than that, it was July 3rd was the previous one. So
so they must be working on something big. That's typically what.
Well, it was a holiday as well, so maybe they're with 4th of July.
Well, they're not in. They're not even in the U.S., are they?
No. No, they have people in the U.S. I've seen them do their live stream, and they were in the United States. Gotcha. Now they are probably preparing for the 28th update, which is going to be 245. Yep. And so that's going to be a pretty big one. We've talked about it. The center. Mega update is, so the center map is adding new biomes, new islands, new caves, creatures, creature spawns, etc. And then they're putting in the primitive plus, and it's completely optimized, and it's the full thing. So that should be really nice. Before it was always just kind of a mod that there are limitations to being a pure mod. They're adding a couple new dinosaurs. They're adding fishing. So this will be a pretty big update that they're going to be doing here in the next couple weeks.
Gotcha.
So now I wanted to talk a little bit about Miscreated. If you look at Miscreated on Steam, their recent reviews are very good. And this was something that we were talking about, I think, in the last 2 weeks, saying that Miscreated really needed to get it to where because it was mixed for recent and overall initially before this patch. If you go now to recent reviews, it's mostly positive. Overall, it's going to take them a bit of work to get out of the mixed range on overall, because that's an overall percentage. So that the recent reviews, there's 914 of them. Overall, there's over 7,000. So they've got to really bring up that percentage. But perhaps with this, they could put maybe a drive on trying to get people to maybe to go in and edit their previous review. Say, hey, would you give us another chance? Come check out what we've done recently. Check out our map, and just the way things work changes. And see, if you think it's better, maybe consider altering your previously bad review of this game, because I think that you could. If you can get enough people to do that, it will drastically change your overall reviews.
Yeah, and that's always a big thing that people bring up. That's
what people look at. I mean, the mostly positive will help, but looking at the overall, as long as they're aware that it has been changed and that's why they're seeing this. But I think that's going to make a huge difference. The fact that it does say mostly positive now, and we'll see that in the numbers a little bit later. But I think that they're going to have to put a big focus on getting rid of that mixed reviews, because there's too many people that when they're looking at whether or not to buy a game, they actually look at those reviews.
Exactly. So that's good stuff coming out of Miscreated, and we've got the current players on them coming up in a few minutes. So got some good stuff there as well. Now there was a we talked about this last week, and I just wanted to bring it back up. So we talked about maybe it wasn't last week, maybe it was the week before with Rust and the new XP system.
Yes.
So they actually released the list of things you can do to get XP, and I just wanted to mention these few things. So these things will earn you XP now if you fish, chop trees, mine rocks, craft items, find crates, smash barrels, hunt, feed people, forage, destroy helicopters, or gut fish. All of that stuff will now get you XP. And that was we've heard from our Rust people that this is a significant change for the game, having this stuff actually get you XP. Kind of like Minecraft does when you mine ore and stuff like that. You get those little XP orbs. But I guess that's really big, and now we actually know what's going to be giving you that extra XP. So that's good news coming out of Rust there.
Yeah, and they've done a number of other fixes in here. I mean, they do always have really nice, they call them dev blogs, for looking at what they're either already have put in or looking at putting in. They're putting in the notes that you can pick up and read from other people. They're fixing some issues with the launcher, because before, if Easy Anti-Cheat was updating in the background, it wouldn't show you a screen, so it would just seem like the launcher was pausing. Now a little download window actually comes up and tells you what's happening. They showed some concept. They always like to show a little bit of concept armor. They're showing like a bone armor that they're working on. They're always working on gunplay, stability, throwable weapons. Like those are things that they're working on. And then we showed a while ago that double barrel shotgun that they had as a concept, but it wasn't painted yet. So they actually have an image in here that you'll be able to check out. And as we said before, we'll have a link to all of this in our show notes so that you can go check out what each of these fixes were and see some of the screenshots that they show. And they have a couple of videos in here as well to kind of show you, like with the throwable weapons and just the XP system in play. Like they have a little video that kind of shows the XP system. So if you're interested, go check it out.
Yeah, they post way too much stuff for us to cover on a show. We could spend an hour talking about all the stuff in the dev blog.
Because each of the developers take a section and write on it. Yeah, so they have it be like their blog and they put it all together, which is very helpful. I mean, imagine if H1Z1 did that, to where the art department weekly almost would write a little blog of what they've been working on that week. We get so much information out of it.
Yeah, that would be great.
So now the forest, one of those ones that I really enjoy the game. We need to have it as a game of the week here coming up soon, so we can play it. But
we do, by the way, just saying.
Yeah, it's in the list. So on July 8th, they introduced a new game mode, which trees will grow back over time as you sleep. So it's type regrow mode. I'm in the title scene to activate this mode. When enabled, a percentage of the trees will grow back each time you sleep at a shelter. Sleep enough times without cutting down trees, and eventually the entire forest will be repopulated. It says, to keep a tree from regrowing in this mode, remove both the tree and the stump so that it doesn't grow back inside of your base. And then where multiplayer, we fixed some issues where enemies would often prioritize the host player over any clients, as far as attacking them. So that's one thing that kind of gave the host of the game a bit of a disadvantage because they would focus on them. And it says, and he finally has gotten hole cutting working for structures in multiplayer games. Actually, even possible to cut holes right out from under other players. So you can cut a hole and have them, I guess, drop through the floor. So they block this action for clients in Iron Forest mode is enabled to by host to stop unwanted renovations to your buildings by other players. So I guess people could put holes in your base and do all kinds of things with that. And then they fixed they put new meat eating animations in there. Sticks can be stored in and transported in the log sled, which is a nice way for moving a large amount of logs. You can make a little sled and kind of slide it around for base building. And then they have a list of just change log that they did for this. So a lot of fixes. It's probably about 3 pages of fixes. So this is one of their bigger ones. They fixed some issues, like for instance, your frames were lowering when when opening the survival book, little things like that. So they're really going for performance on this, and then they fix a lot of things with multiplayer. So now after that, they did 2 hot fixes. So on the 10th, they had a three little hot fixes of one was from the new regrow mode. There was a bug with that. Weapons getting stuck, and then sometimes players were sometimes gliding when running up slopes and other objects. So now they actually run correctly. They can't slide or glide. And then on the 10th, they also put out a little hot fix that fixed some incorrect quality presets. So they were lowering performance on the quality settings lower than it says, causing lower than expected performance on quality levels lower than highest. So that's good. So if you weren't on highest, like, you'd actually get a performance decrease. So they fixed that. So those were 3 patches in that week. But the Force, it's an excellent game. It's a cool co-op game. So I think you can have 4 players at once. And that game, if I remember correctly,
4.
you can host it.
No, 8.
Unless they're
8, and it's hosted on, but it's hosted locally.
Okay, yeah, 8, but yeah, someone has to host it. Now, another game, The Black Death. This is one that looked like it would be a lot of fun. And this was a pretty big, I think this is like a gigabyte update that they did. So this is version 0.07. They've added beggars. And so it's pretty much a profession that you can play. So times are hard, and they've introduced beggars. So they excel at crafting poor quality trinkets and decorative items. They have improved resistance to the plague, and the ability to beg for money, allowing other players to toss them gold coins. So that was added as a profession. Bounty system. So you can put a price on your head, literally. So you can live like an outlaw, robbing and murdering for your own ends. But be careful. People can now put a bounty on your head. So it'll encourage people to go and kill you. And then they've gone through and they've been working on the combat system. They've added a new arena. A new area. So they've added a Bleak Fortress of iron hold watches over Mercia and the slopes of Frostfall. So those are their areas in there. This is a nice big looking castle. They've added a secret cave in here. They've adjusted the weather effects, XP system update, fixed issues with items crafting. They've added player titles. So you actually can see, that's one thing. It's kind of hard to see who was what in this game. They've gone through and really been working on the UI, fixed audio issues. I mean, this is a huge bug fix one. So I encourage you to go in there. I'm going to go play it this week. I mean, this just came out on the 11th, so yesterday. So I still haven't played it yet, but we'll have to see. I keep logging every once in a while just to see if it is getting better. And hopefully it is, because it's been unplayable, I think, up to this point.
Well, and again, we're getting into this situation where this game came out April 19th of this year, 2016, and its overall reviews are mixed, with 56% of them being positive, so just barely over 50%. And in the recent last 30 days, only 60% are positive. So now we're getting into a situation, another Miscreated situation, where it got a bunch of negative reviews right off the bat, and then now they're going to have to constantly backtrack for the next year and a half.
They're going to be fighting that.
Try to get them up.
Quite a while.
I don't if you are coming out, Brian, today with a game like this, or not even a game like this, just a greenlit alpha game, whatever you want to call this, early access game, it just doesn't make sense to put a product out that doesn't work. Doesn't work. I mean, you logged into the game day one and you literally couldn't even interact with objects. Yep. It didn't work day one, and now you are going to have to make up all of those negative reviews. I mean, you've got over 300 reviews that are negative on this game that's only got 600 reviews, and that's a big deal. So you just think these indie game studios, or even individual people, will just learn that don't release a product that is going to get negative reviews, because once you get those negative reviews, you are going to constantly be fighting an uphill battle. Like Miscreated is doing.
It was released in a state that should have been just like early prototype internal. The fact that nothing worked when day one, they should have never let that be released.
Yeah, or a private beta where you got to sign up via email and you don't have to, buy it. It should have been free. It wasn't playable from your accounts. I mean, I didn't personally play it, but I trust you when you say you literally couldn't open a door.
Yeah, it was really bad. I mean, I couldn't even figure out what to do in the game. There were no other players. Nothing worked. Like there was a period of time, I don't know if I was disconnected the first day, and it was still just letting me run around everywhere because nothing worked. And it showed nobody logged into servers. And then it got so bad because people weren't playing to where there were only 2 people logged into any of the servers. So there's no chance of interacting and seeing that kind of a gameplay with people. They're going to have a lot to go against, and they're going to have to figure out how to bring all these people that purchased it back into the game to even bother. And they're going to have it to where when you get in the game, there's an obvious, try this out, do something, because I just run around and I'm not sure what the point is. What am I supposed to do? It's not very clear. They have a lot of work to continue doing. And if they can continuously put out updates like this that are huge updates and adding content, I think they will bring people back. But they're always, as you said, they're always going to be fighting this mixed review list.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. We've seen it time and time again. Games released that aren't playable, and then it's an awful situation for the game company. You just think, put the extra, 2 months into work and delay the release, like No Man's Sky did. That game just went gold this week. The final copy went gold in production. The game wasn't going to be ready, so what did they do? They delayed it I'm pretty sure they delayed it 2 months. And now we're going to have hopefully a really awesome game coming out.
But
soon.
If that's what it takes, imagine if they had released it and it just flopped. They would never make up those numbers again.
But that's the difference between somebody that's producing a AAA game like No Man's Sky and people producing indie early access games like this. And from the way it looks on the outside, I'm not part of the industry. It just looks like they don't care. They just want to get as much pre-sale and make as much capital off the launch as possible. That's what it looks like to me. Could that be a very broad generalization? Yes, but that's the way
I think
it looks.
They were hoping. I just don't know how they could have. I think they were trying to keep a deadline, or they said, "Oh, we'll release on this day." They should have definitely waited until at least it was playable, or released it in a limited capacity to where you could say, "Hey, we just need people to test this and make sure things are working," as we were saying before. It was just released as this should be something you should be able to play day one. Look at the video we made, and that was nothing like what was released. And so people at least expect, if you're showing a video of here's gameplay, that's what people expect. You should at least be at that level of what you're showing off.
Exactly. So we'll have to see. We'll keep an eye on it. Now, real quick, this week's Game of the Week, which will be on Friday the 15th, is going to be Hurt World. So if you were smart and listened to Brian and I like a month ago, we said Hurt World, which was last month's Humble Bundle Monthly, was going to be a Game of the Week, and it is this week's Game of the Week. If you missed out on it, you're going to have to drop $25 if you want to play. It's $24.99 on Steam. I'm sure you could get it on G2A or somebody else a little bit cheaper if that's what you want to do. But that's going to be this Friday night. Landgun's going to be hosting it. I'm not going to be there, Brian. I don't know if you will be. But
I think I will be.
Yeah, and we actually did Rocket League last week, and another great success. We had
good. I was out of town for a wedding, so
we had missed it. We had 9 people, which you really don't want any more than 8 people. So you can do a 4-on-4.
Yeah, because then you have to start splitting into multiple groups of groups.
And we didn't have to. I just took a few games out, and then when somebody left, I hopped in and we played 4v4s for probably 2.5 hours or so. So a lot of fun with Rocket League. We do have the games of the weeks planned out all the way up until September now. So we'll be releasing that stuff every week. But again, another note, if you are interested, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, the multiplayer thing, is this month's Humble Bundle. The starter pack is this month's Humble Bundle. It's $12 to get it. We will be playing that as the game of the week. It's already on the list. I've got the date, and we're playing it. So if you want to play it, sign up for the Humble Bundle. You can cancel it after you pay for it. You'll get all the games. but that will be a game of the week. So for $12, get
So, and
Call of
if you
Duty.
cancel it, that'll make it pretty much you just pay for one, and then you'll be able to see what a hint at the next one is, and you can decide if you want to continue your subscription or not. But
Exactly.
we had Hurt World previously. This one's Call of Duty. This should be a good one. Now, this is the starter pack, and there's an option I think for like $15 on Steam to update it to the full whatever pack if you want to do. But you can look at the reasons that you would do that.
Exactly. So that's what's going on.
And this right now, to buy this as is on Steam for just this part is usually $14.99 right now. So you would get it for $12 plus the 4 or 5 other games that they're going to be adding to this.
You can't beat it, and it's a Call of Duty game. So if you've ever, like most people have played a Call of Duty in the past, it's just the multiplayer version of that. That's why it's called the starter pack. So that's what's going on. Hurt World this week, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/landgun44. He'll be live, and hopefully you guys have a good time playing that. And Brian will have a recap for us next week. Now, we do have current players, and starting off with Just Survive, currently playing that 4,888. The 24-hour peak for that is 5,113. The 7-day peak, 6,517. For King of the Kill, currently playing that 9,590. The 24-hour peak, 10,300. And the 7-day peak, 11,838. Ark, this is Survival Evolved, currently playing that 52,430. The 24-hour peak is 55,193, with a 7-day peak of 68,663. Now, Rust, the current players and the 24-hour are way up on Rust, currently playing that 51,522. So just,
must be that new XP system.
Yeah, just like 1,000 less than Ark. The 24-hour peak for that is over Ark's at this point, 57,560, and the 24-hour peak 64,979. So almost 6,500 people, 65,000 people, playing that. And then Miscreated, Brian, I've got some great news for you. Currently playing that 979 people, almost 1,000. You're so close to 1,000. The 24-hour
Actually, right now it's higher. So have you refreshed?
No, I didn't. I wrote these down like 5 minutes ago.
Okay, so it's 1,233 right now.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's up a lot.
Yep.
The 24-hour peak for that is 18,020, and the 7-day peak, which is the all-time, is 1,905 people. So they need 2,000. 2,000 would be a great number for them to hit in the coming weeks, and that'll break their all-time record. So, I'm gonna have to eat my shoe, Brian, because I was wrong. At least I thought I was wrong. I'm Miscreated, but that's good. I'm excited for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the start, and if they can continue to capitalize on this, it's a really good game. And I've been saying this all along. Once they fix this one thing, it'll start to take off. And and they fixed that one thing. So, and you could see how much. I mean, the numbers are 10 times what they were before, on average.
So, literally 10 times.
10 times higher. And I think that they can continue to grow this to where there's a couple thousand people consistently playing this. I mean, I don't know that they'll ever hit the 40,000, Ark and Rust style numbers, but I think that they can get to where they're consistent 3,000 to 5,000 players, just like H1Z1. There would be no reason that it wouldn't once people get into the building system there, because there is a full building system and they're a very nice building system.
Yeah.
So once they get these people to kind of start forming clans and making buildings and get those groups that consistently play, these numbers will continue to grow up. And if you're looking, like if you want to get started and get into a clan, now is the time, because there's a lot of people running around new at the game. I mean, that's how we started our H1Z1 clan.
Exactly.
Was running around and running into people and saying, hey, you want to play with us? Or you want to build a base, or you want to do this together? And that's how we started it. So you're at the perfect time for Miscreated to go in there, start finding people that like to play the game and say, hey, let's make a base. Let's see what we can do. Let's try this out. And there's actually a reason to do it now. So you could get a really nice community going.
Exactly. So, of course, we'll keep that up to date. I believe we have Miscreated as a night. Actually, maybe not. We'll have to maybe adjust the schedule a little bit, but we will get Miscreated in
the
here
list.
soon, because now obviously there's
Not a daybreak soon, a real
no,
soon.
not a, well, actually, our soon's we only do one game a week, so our soon could be like a month away technically.
Yeah, that's true.
Based on how only doing one game a week. Other than that, Brian, we've got your tip of the week. If you want to just roll into that, we can go ahead and do that.
Sure. Yep. And we don't have any intro music or anything, right? So
no.
Okay, well, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure. All right, so tip of the week's where I go through and give some sort of a tip, usually particular to a certain game. Maybe it'll be a survival tip in general or a gaming tip. This week's tip is Miscreated. So for this tip, I wanted to talk a little bit about the aiming system. In Miscreated, we've talked about, man, they really need to tweak the way that the gunplay is and everything. So I figured I would explain how the gun system works right now, how the guns aim and fire, and what's happening to the bullet. So if you look at the bullets in Miscreated, it's not like Call of Duty. It's treated as an actual physical object. I think more like what's the other Call of Duty versus Battlefield?
Battlefield?
I think it's more of how Battlefield treats its bullets. But since it is a physical object, it does decrease in speed and in damage the farther that the bullet travels. So, and you also need to count in the downward trajectory, makes it so the bullet doesn't actually travel in a straight line. It doesn't treat it like a laser or, at that point that your thing is aiming at. It's not going to always hit that because it will drop. You have to count in for the drop. So depending on the weapon, the ammo that you have, the bullet will start to fall the farther it travels. So a lot of this is learning, kind of like what we're seeing the opposite of in H1Z1. People get used to this one certain way. Same thing here. People just aren't used to how it works in the first place because they're so used to playing these other games, and they're thinking that the bullet system is going to be exactly the same. What you need to do is start, and being that it was hard to find guns and really people don't really shoot the guns that often, so there's not a lot of ammo to waste. Now that there's storage, there's a good chance that you can build up some ammo and maybe have some guns to go and play with and actually practice shooting. Because up until this point, being Miscreated is more of a survival game. Ammo was truly rare, and you didn't waste it. So you don't get the opportunity to sit there and learn how the gun fires. And maybe that's why people are saying the gunplay is just so horrible in this, is because they've never had an opportunity. Maybe this is a hint that maybe Miscreated could make a gun range, like a separate mode you can go in and just practice firing guns to get good at it. Because I would use in H1Z1, I would use the BRs or King of the Kill to really work on my gunplay, because then I wouldn't be sitting there and using the bullets that we were saving in survival mode to learn how to shoot the gun. And, there were points where we got enough to where we could. But I think that's one thing that we don't have in Miscreated is a way to really practice your shooting. So, either maybe now that bullets are more common, or not that they're more common, but that you're actually able to save them up, and so they'll be more common to you. Or maybe they'll come up with a way for you to practice your shooting. I should email them a suggestion. But I think a lot of it is just getting used to how the guns fire. That what you're pointing at, it's not always going to reach that point at the same place. So you actually have to count for aim, just like a real gun would drop the bullet. So that is my tip of the week.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brian. This is the shortest episode of Infection on record, I believe. Just over an hour. Let's see. Any other notes before we finish it up here?
No. I mean, we're not doing a game giveaway or anything this week.
Well, I don't know if anybody's even watching live, but we might as well say it for next week when we've got a larger group.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll just we'll skip it till next time, and maybe we'll give away double games next week or something fun.
Some incentive, yeah.
I clicked roll a test, so PHBCK, you won my fake roll. Thank you.
There you go. So yeah, I will be back in full force in New York next week with full internet access. Hopefully, I've been to some pretty bad places with internet. This is the worst. Yeah. Hands down, this is the worst. I've been to some pretty bad
the funny
places.
thing is, you have like a DSL modem in your room that's capped at 900K.
Yeah, I'm plugged into it right now. I've got my Ethernet, 200-foot Ethernet cable hooking me up. 900K. I'm capped. How was the audio any good? for the
Yeah,
show?
it would fluctuate here and there. We were teasing in
Yeah.
chat that sometimes it sounded like you're transmitting with a radio, with like a potato.
Yes, great. So
Potato
that's
radio.
yeah. Now imagine if we were doing video, which would have required like 10 times the bandwidth. How great that would have been.
Yep.
Alrighty, guys.
So yeah,
Brian, where can
definitely. I'm
people
glad we
find
didn't
you?
do video because if your audio was fluctuating like that, I can only imagine what the video would have done.
Yeah. Where can people find you on the net, Brian?
Yeah, if you want to find me at Boise Computer is my Twitter. If you want to go check out my blog, Bite of Tech, that's BITE of tech.com. That takes you to all my different social media links. If you want to go join us in game or find us on Steam, go to infectionpodcast.com. On the upper right, we have a link that will get you an invite link to our Discord server. If you want to find us inside of Steam, we have a link that says join our Steam group. If you're not a part of our Steam group, I really encourage you to do that. It's a really good way for you to link up with maybe some people that you type to in chat during our show, or maybe you're looking for some people to play a certain game with you. That is an excellent way to find people because we've got a big group of people that are a member of our Steam group. So other than that, we still have our TeamSpeak, not using it currently, but you're more than welcome. If you have a group of people and you don't want to be in our Discord, you're more than welcome to go and use our TeamSpeak. Sitting there open, you can create temporary channels or jump into an existing channel. But yeah, make sure you join us. This week was early. It'll be mostly on the podcast form. Didn't really announce it beforehand, but look forward to the same normal time next week of Infection.
Yep, that'll be right. Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be here live in video, in high definition video next week. Again, I do apologize to all of our listeners and our especially our live audience, because they're the ones that really got screwed in this. But I just thought this would be the best possible time for the show. At least bandwidth wise. So guys, that is going to do it for episode number 78 of Infection, the survival podcast. My name is Nick Craig. At Nicholas M. Craig is my Twitter. Infectionpodcast.com is the website. See you next week for Infection. Have a great week, everybody.